Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and continuing on Oscar-winning movie week. And that's right, the next Oscar-winning film, and which of course won Best Picture, well, I'm not doing it alone. I've got with me my dad, aka Little Blue, and for this one, it was obvious that both of us, we had to do this. He had to join me for this because this one Oscar-winning film, and that one Best Picture, of course, being one of my dad's top favorite movies. It's in his top list of favorite movies, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah,
that's right.
Top 10.
Yeah, top 10. So that's right, guys. We are reviewing from 2000, Gladiator. Yes, Gladiator. Ridley Scott, Russell Crowe, Richard Harris, Oliver Reed, Connie Nielsen, Joaquin Phoenix. Need I go on? And what can you say about Gladiator? Because just how fantastic this movie is, and how, I would like to think, and probably so, because who'd have thought that, the same guy who brought us, films like, say, Alien, Blade Runner, Thelma and Louise would do this movie. Ridley Scott, I feel as though that Ridley Scott's one of those movies that he just directs random movies.
I had said before that Gladiator was, of all the movies, it was my favorite, had my favorite opening scene of any movie until Revenge of the Sith came out.
Well, but before we get started, and with the opening, first read the description / the story. Why don't you take it from here?
Set in Roman times, the story of a once powerful general forced to become a common gladiator. The emperor's son is enraged when he is passed over as heir in favor of his father's favorite general. He kills his father and arranges the murder of the general's family, and the general is sold into slavery to be trained as a gladiator. But his subsequent popularity in the arena threatens the throne.
Right. So there's that. So the movie itself, you of course saw this when it came out on the big screen.
I did.
Both you and my mom, and you guys just loved the movie instantly.
Yeah, it's set in 180 AD. And
right.
it's after the time Christ was on the earth, but it's at the height of the Roman Empire, when the Roman Empire was vast, and it even says this at the beginning of the movie. It explains how vast and large the Roman Empire really was. There was a saying, and I can't remember what it was. It was because it was in Latin, but it was a Latin phrase for "I am a Roman citizen." It was said that a Roman citizen could wear that around their neck where it could be seen and walk across the face of the earth and never be touched by an adversary or an enemy, because they would fear the retribution of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was feared that much that a single Roman citizen would not be touched for fear of retribution.
Right.
That's power.
Mm-hmm. And so, okay, and with the opening to the movie, because again, as you said, one of your favorite movie openings, right next to, say, the opening to Revenge of the Sith, but also your other favorite movie openings are from two Star Trek films, The Undiscovered Country and the 2009 Star Trek film, the first Star Trek film in the Kelvin timeline.
Yes, the first one, which is the opening. The opening of the first film in Star Trek 9, to me, is the most realistic portrayal of what Starfleet would be like if it were real, in the 23rd century. And I love the communications between Starfleet and the Kelvin, and it was very much militaristic. Like, it sounded like, ship-to-shore communications, basically. And it was so realistic.
Right. And of course in Star Trek 6, like that opening with the Klingon moon being destroyed explodes, and that shockwave, yeah.
Yes.
And of course Revenge of the Sith, that opening of like the battle up in the atmosphere of Coruscant, up in space. So, but with the opening to Gladiator, like, you could take it from here. Like, what about the opening?
The opening of Gladiator is it's very interesting because you start out, The start of it is you see a hand, and it's the hand of General Maximus,
Played by the one and only Russell Crowe.
who is raking his hand across the top of a wheat field.
Yeah.
Wheat. And any of us who've grown up in the country have done that at one time or another. I certainly did. It's just it's almost a soothing sensation to rub your hand across the top of grain of wheat like that. And this is what he's doing, and he's imagining.
Yeah, he's imagining.
He's imagining, and then he looks and sees a bluebird.
It's
very
like
cold.
Orangey kind of bird.
It's like an oriole. It's orange it's blue, has blue wings, it has orange breast, and he sees it. He looks at it.
Yeah, for a moment he sees the bird.
For the moment he sees the bird, it's almost like for a moment he's at peace, knowing what he has to do. He has to lead these men
peace and life,
and to kill the Germanians, and this is their last foothold.
And after seeing that bird fly away, he has a little smile, but then looks back and
back to the battlefield.
He's back and focused on the battle.
So the battle has not yet started. It's a standoff between at this point, you don't even see the enemy, but you see the messenger come back.
Yeah, because they were waiting to see what their response was, those who they were facing against. And when the messenger returned, well, they got the message because the messenger was beheaded.
Right, and he was beheaded, and then the next thing you see all these Germanian soldiers come out of the tree line.
And the one Germanian soldier throwing the head of the messenger.
And has the head, and it's very intimidating, and he throws the head, and then that's when they know, and he says...
they're going to go to war to them. So
exactly. Falco, not Falco. It's not Falco. It's trying to remember his... It's and not Commodus. It's
Marcus. How's the last name said? Marcus who? Marcus who?
Quintus. Quintus was his right hand man. Quintus was like his first officer,
right?
The equivalent, General Maximus. And he says people ought to know. He tells Maximus, he says people ought to know when they've been conquered. And Maximus looks at him and he says, would you? Would I?
Quintus, is that who?
Quintus says
played
that.
Played by Thomas Arana.
Arana, yeah. And he, it was really, it showed you that General Maximus, he had empathy for the Germanians because he knew they were about to destroy them in battle, and he knew that they would be defeated, and most of them killed. But he understood why they wanted to live on, why they wanted to survive, because that's why he says this to Quintus. He says, when Quintus says people should know when they're conquered, and he says, would you, would I? No, anybody with a fighting spirit is not going to just lay down and be conquered. So Maximus recognized that, he respected it, and then they go into battle. But the interesting part is before they go into battle, he says, when I give the signal, rain hellfire.
Yeah.
And then
they had something in store for them. So.
He tells his soldiers on horseback. He says, if you find yourself riding alone, and you in a field and in quiet, he said, fear not. He said, because you are in Elysium, which is their equivalent of heaven. That's what they call heaven, Elysium.
Right.
He said, and you're already dead.
Yeah, I remember that.
They're all cracking up, and it's kind of comic relief. It's kind of like spitting in the face of death. It's like we're Romans. We're
exactly
gonna kick their butt. And we're not going to die. They are,
and they for sure did kick their butts.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
oh yeah,
unleashing hell on them basically. So
it was a hard fought battle. I mean, there were Roman soldiers that were killed certainly, but the Germanians were completely defeated.
Mm-hmm. And then, another one of the big characters, Marcus. How's the last name said?
Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah, played by the late legendary Richard Harris.
Yes.
And not to mention, he did this movie a year before, being Dumbledore. So what about Marcus?
Marcus is a very fair. He's a very fair Caesar.
Yeah, he's a Caesar.
But he is war weary. He is tired of war. He is tired of fighting. He wants to go home
and politics
and but his son Commodus, played by Joaquin Phoenix,
the one and only Joaquin Phoenix,
who is basically the devil in this movie.
Yeah,
he's power hungry. He wants power. He wants the title of Caesar.
Thirst for power and
passed
such.
down. But when he finds out that Commodus, that Marcus Aurelius is going to turn the reins over to Maximus, and Rome is to become a republic again, he can't handle it. So he kills his own father.
Yeah,
takes the reins as, but Maximus knows that the emperor has been slain. He knows that Commodus has done this.
Yeah, and let's not forget Marcus's daughter and Commodus's sister. Is it Lucille? Or how's the name said? Lucilla, played by Connie Nielsen.
Right.
Yeah, and she was a great character in this.
She was a very great character, very strong.
Exactly, and I think she kind of didn't want to be strong, I think, and such. But she was. The fact is that she was in this movie, even she knows that her brother did something to their father, and even like the interactions that she has with Maximus, and Maximus, they all knew each other as kids. So, and Marcus at one point when Marcus tells Maximus that he's going to pass the torch to him, and Marcus at one point said that he considered Maximus a son to him and wished that he was his son than Commodus. Golly, because come on, I'm sure that he would still love his son, but of course he's well aware how messed up his son is.
Well, Commodus is already messed up. It doesn't matter. Forget the fact that his dad was never there, and he was always on the go, and always ruling in battle, blah, 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 blah. It didn't matter. He was messed up anyway. He was mentally disturbed.
Mentally, yeah, that explains a lot. And I'd like to mention this because I know I mentioned this to you, even I mentioned this to my mom, and she thought, yeah, I did a good comparison. I think there are some good comparisons between Commodus and Scar from The Lion King.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told you about that.
Yeah, I agree.
They both thirst for power and they want the throne. So they get their way, but of course in the end they lose. So, and the rightful one to take the throne, yeah, they get it. So
I found the Latin phrase for "I am a Roman citizen." It is "Civis Romanus sum," which is "I am a Roman citizen."
Yeah,
and it's basically a phrase used in Cicero's "In a Virum" as a plea for the legal rights of a Roman citizen. So it's from something in history, but I think it was more myth or legend than fact that you could wear that around your neck and not be touched walking across the face of the earth, because there would certainly be places on earth that they would not understand or know who the Roman Empire was. So
yeah, and if I remember correctly, Marcus also wants Maximus to free Roman. Is that it? Is that another thing? Or yes, he wants wants to make Roman Republic, but I think wanting to free the people or something like that, because that's what Maximus does in the end.
Yeah, it's because the Roman citizens are they're the subjects of the Caesar, basically.
Right.
So it's sort of like that where they
yeah.
The Romans I lost my train of thought completely.
Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and say this because, yeah, that emotional moment with Commodus and, and how Marcus is apologizing to his son, but should have seen it coming because, yeah, how Commodus kills his own father. So. Yeah,
and like I said, Maximus knew. He knew that he'd killed his father.
And so did help me out again, her name? Lucilla. She knew too. Even slapping him in the face. Yeah, he got what he deserved.
But then she said, "Hail Caesar."
Yeah.
Because she acknowledged that he was now the Caesar, and there was nothing she could do about it.
For now.
At that
nobody could do anything for now, so.
Well, the only one that could do anything would have been Maximus.
Of course.
Right.
And yeah, even when he got help along the way. but how it was all up to him. It was really up to him to, take on Commodus, now the Caesar. And by the way, because more on her, because it's established that, she has a son, and unfortunately her husband died. So I don't think the movie establishes what happened to her husband.
He was killed in battle.
Okay, yeah.
Because Maximus says to her, he says, I mourned his death.
Yeah, and her son, Lucius.
Lucius, who's very...
Played by Spencer Trey Clark.
Yeah, he actually was very naive about his uncle. Which I guess is probably good, because he didn't realize how evil he was, that he would have just as soon killed him.
And it was... I mean, I'll go ahead and say this. It was, it was nice to see, like, Commodus, being a good uncle to his nephew, so...
Yeah, but he wasn't. He was
I'm just saying...
he was like leading the lamb to the slaughter.
I mean, I'm just saying...
His eventual goal would have been to kill him.
I'm just saying some interactions that they had,
Right, because he wanted to have a child with his own sister, which would have meant that he would have killed, or had Lucius killed.
Now that you bring it up, because... I think it's obvious, because there are a few moments, and you get that feeling. I know I was, for sure. I think for everybody, like Commodus was like flirting with his own sister or something, like.
Oh yeah, it was really sick. That's when you really.
It really shows how messed up he is.
Yeah, he's really messed up. I mean,
God, and wanting to mate his own sister.
Of course, that was done. That was more common than you'd care to imagine.
Yeah.
Back in the day, that's a lot of the royalty. It was believed that they had to stay within the bloodlines. So you ended up having people. You even ended up having kings and queens with like 3 eyes and 2 noses. And, I'm seriously. There was. If you go back and look at some of the old paintings, there's some serious deformities.
It's just weird to be hearing that stuff,
because there was a lot of incest. Is what it's called. It's incest, and that's what it was. Now, in this case, it's painted that incest is not a good thing, which it's not a good thing. It's number one.
Of course,
it's not. It's not healthy.
No,
to the child, and 2, it's just not natural. So.
No. Okay, but continuing, because after Marcus's murder, and now because immediately Commodus becomes the new Caesar.
Yes.
And one of the first things he does is order Maximus's death.
He ordered Maximus's family's death, and his death too, because they take him out.
Even Maximus's own soldiers turning against him. He gives
Maximus one chance. He offers his hand. He said,
Quintus turning against him too.
Quintus turned his back on him.
Yeah.
But he says to him, Commodus says to Maximus, he says, take my hand, brother. And he pauses and he goes, I'll only offer it once. Which he's telling Maximus, if you don't take my hand now, you will die. And Maximus was not going to take his hand.
And why would he? So
he walked away. And that's when,
even when Maximus said to Quintus, look after my family and such, and Quintus, the next thing Quintus says is, you'll see them in the afterlife and such. Of course, Maximus is furious over that. And them, about to execute Maximus, and he even tells a couple of the soldiers, do it. How does he say it? Like in the manly way, in the way of the soldier. I think that's the best way I can put at it. But he has a trick up his sleeve, and he takes care of them, and of course he has to kill them, and thus he escapes.
Exactly.
He at one point took 2 horses, but eventually he just rode on one. And, oh boy, because the murder of Maximus's wife and son, just so horrible.
Yeah, they were crucified.
Yeah. Here they are. Well, that's easy for us to know, because on the IMDb page, as always, we have IMDb. Maximus's wife being played by
Giannina Fascio.
And Maximus's son being played by
Giorgio Cantarini.
Thank you. So, yeah, seeing them, and basically Maximus, he and his family, they live on a farm. And, because when the soldiers arrive, Maximus's son thinks that, his father has returned, but even Maximus's wife gets a bit suspicious on what's going on. And when the soldiers, they get close to the son, they they just push him aside, you know. Just,
No, they trampled him.
well, the trample. Yeah, that's the word I couldn't think of that word. Thank you.
They trampled him, and he was probably at that point already mortally wounded. He was already crushed.
Pretty much.
But they ended up hanging him anyway. You know,
well,
crucifying him.
When Maximus finally gets there, he can already see that a lot of burning and damage in that location.
I mean, that would be horrible.
And when he
absolutely horrible.
we see the only glimpse we see is their feet, and yeah, obviously the sight he is seeing is just horrible, and the emotion that Russell Crowe gives as Maximus is really good.
Yeah, it's very emotional.
You
the music throughout that
by Hans Zimmer.
Absolutely beautiful score, and the beginning score at that opening scene, that's what that ominous sound, it grows and grows and builds and builds, and there's drama, and it's like you know something big is happening, and it really just intensifies that scene much more.
And speaking of which, I feel like mentioning this, there were times when watching the movie that were like I was getting like a bit of, like the music. I was getting a bit of Pirates of the Caribbean vibes. Just some of the keys in the music.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And
you know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
surely you would have noticed it.
Yes, because and it's a lot of times you will notice that Jerry Goldsmith has borrowed phrasing and notes from other compositions, and that if you see Star Trek V and then you see Star Trek Generations, there are similarities in the music.
John Williams has done the same thing. Danny Elfman, need I go on?
Because there's only so many notes, musical notes.
But back to Maximus and his, again, the emotional performance that Russell Crowe gives, like. Yeah, do you happen to notice, like, he had snot coming down?
Yeah, it was, it was realistic. And I think he was it was very realistic. But of course, he is finally recovered just outside of his own gates, basically.
Yeah.
By this slave train.
Well,
that's
he buried his deceased wife and son, and he basically went to sleep like at their grave sites, and then a group of people pick him up. So.
And he's the first thing that happens is the character Juba. Played by Jimon Hounsou.
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff.
Oh, he has. He was actually in. He was in
the first Guardians of the Galaxy film.
Yes, he was.
And the same character he plays like in Guardians, and who would make an appearance in the Captain Marvel. So, but again, he's done a lot of other movies. Like he's one of those actors that you would sometimes, from time to time, see.
But he puts in his wound on his arm. He packs it with maggots.
Oh yeah.
Which I know it sounds gross, but really it would.
What's that going to do?
The maggots are fly larvae basically, and they feed off bacteria and germs. So all the bacteria that's in that wound, maggots eat it up, and it's just like it's almost like it would be the equivalent. And it sounds gross. It would be the equivalent of pouring alcohol on it or sterilizing it.
Okay.
That's what they had. That's what they used.
Now I get it.
And it helped him. It healed him. Because otherwise he would have lost his arm because it would have gotten infected and gangrene would have set in, and that would have been that.
Yeah. And by the way, this popped in my head. Like, there are many times where we see Maximus, like, like kind of like putting sand in his hands. I mean, what's that about? He picks up sand and he just kind of like so.
I think it's just something that he did, as you see him do that before he go into battle.
Yeah.
But he would just to
rub it on his hands.
Just almost, it was. I think it's be like a balm, something to soothe him. Where you would think, well, okay, most people want a massage, they want oil, want them to soothe them and to relax them. He uses dirt because the dirt, I think, it's a balm, it's a soothing balm, and it prepares him for battle.
Yeah,
that's how I interpret that.
Yeah, yes. I think that explains it.
But as he goes into battle, Proximo, played by Oliver Reed.
Enter Proximo, played by the late great legendary Oliver Reed, and this being one of his last movies, and during when this movie was made, because he unexpectedly died.
Yeah, he did.
We can go. I mean, we can talk about what happened during the making of this film, and I think you can best explain it. And from what you told me, about what happened with Oliver Reed during the making of Gladiator?
Oh, he was.
Yeah, you can take the lead on
Yeah,
this
I
one.
had forgotten about this actually, and I'm going to try and remember it the best I can. He basically got into a drinking match with some sailors,
And before that, because I can say in case you've forgotten about this, he promised Ridley Scott that he would not drink while, like, say, I guess, filming the movie.
Well, this was on a weekend, and apparently he thought he could get away with it. But
Yeah.
I don't know if it was actually Ridley Scott in the bar with him, but it was somebody from the set.
Yeah, somebody from the set
that was in the bar with him. And when he took a drink and he drank himself to death, basically he looked and he said, "I don't feel good."
Yeah,
and,
those were his last words.
And he died.
He died instantly.
But he lived a pretty hard life, from what I understand. Oliver Reed.
Yeah.
There was a funny story about him because he used to. He was good friends with Keith Moon. Now, if you don't know who Keith Moon is, Keith Moon,
the original drummer from The Who,
and one of the greatest rock drummers of all time, because he basically played drums like a lead guitar or like a vocalist.
Yeah,
I mean,
like Keith Moon, just going at it, just full of energy playing drums.
And his nickname was Moon the Loon, which he lived up to it, and that's the reputation he had.
And fun fact, because Keith Moon was the inspiration for Animal. You know, the drummer from the Muppets.
Absolutely. So here's the funny story. Not to go too far into the weeds on this, but
yeah.
Oliver Reed told this story in an interview I saw him in, and he said that he got a call from Keith Moon, and Moon invited. He was at a hotel. He says, "Come on up. I need you to come up." So he comes up there, and he's got these Swedish women in there, naked, running around, and he says, "Come here. I need you to help me." And they pick up they're in a hotel room. And he helps him pick up the TV set.
Right.
So Oliver Reed picks up one side of the TV set, and Keith Moon picks up the other. Now this is the hotel TV set.
Yeah.
They carry it over to the window and chuck it out the window. Boom! It hits the ground and boom, bursts into a million pieces. The concierge comes running out, and he looks up and he says, "What's the meaning of this? What are you doing?" And Keith Moon looks down and he says. "Answer your phone or the radio's coming down next."
I guess what? Bad room service?
Yeah.
I think that...
And so he threw the TV out the window.
I think it's obvious that Keith Moon was getting bad room service.
And he could get away with it.
And Oliver Reed went along with this.
Of course he did.
Helping out Keith Moon.
Of course he did.
Well, I mean...
Because he was as crazy as Keith Moon.
And, well, I mean, hey, I'm sure that, both of them, they had a good friendship, so...
Oh, they did.
Yeah,
no question.
So,
but, And Oliver Reed was a fine actor, so
absolutely,
there's no, you're not going to take that away from him.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely not. And also not to mention, because fun fact, because another fun fact of Oliver Reed on working on Gladiator, he and Russell Crowe they didn't get along while making the film.
Russell Crowe
and Oliver Reed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
I'd like to think that probably Russell Crowe, I guess regretted, not getting along with Oliver Reed after his passing. So,
well,
even when, like, say, Russell mentioned, Oliver Reed when he won, an Oscar for his performance, naming out the cast, including Oliver Reed. So,
well, it lent itself to the credibility of the characters because there was a strain between those two characters anyway.
Yeah.
Basically, Proximo, he acknowledged that Maximus was a great fighter and probably a better gladiator than he could have ever hoped to be.
He can sense the fact that there was something about Maximus.
But I think he resented the fact that he was that good and he was never that good. So I think there was a little jealousy there that he had toward him, and it showed in their relationship. And probably, if that's true, that they didn't get along on set very well, that probably translated to an even better performance between the two.
Yeah, and I think
dynamics.
And I also think, because Proximo and Maximus, they share some things in common.
They do.
Because Proximo was kind of went through the same thing that Maximus did.
And he talks about the fact that when Marcus Aurelius freed him, and Russell Crowe, Maximus says, he laughs, turns and laughs, says, "You knew Marcus Aurelius," and he fires back and he says, "I didn't say I know him." He said, "I didn't say I knew him." He said, "He freed me." And he presented him, and he showed him the sword. It was a wooden sword that he presented him with, as a gesture of freedom.
Yeah, and even Maximus, mentioning that, about Caesar, murdering the man who freed you. So
Yes.
he at one point mentioned that to Proximo, and yeah, Proximo, like, you know, he buys Maximus and Juba, you know, because this one guy who had them, I believe it was it might have been him, yeah, the slave trader played by Ahmed Dajali. Am I saying?
Ahmed Dajali, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he's the same guy from the first Mummy film.
Okay.
Remember, because he got that one bug that in his belly.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So like meeting with Proximo, and because Proximo at one point grabbed him by the crotch. Because it had about 2 giraffes that he bought. And, you know, you gave me queer giraffes. You know, they're not mating. So.
Yeah, exactly.
And thus, Proximo, like, then going to, like, seeing these warriors, these fighters, and buying Maximus and Juba. So, you know, Proximo is in this business of fighters, I want to say. Like,
yeah, it's Proximus is in the Proximo is in his. He basically collects fighters, collects gladiators.
Right.
Then he takes them from town to town, and they'll go to where these arenas are, and then he gets paid, and his ultimately some of his gladiators get killed in the arena.
Yeah.
But Maximus and the other 2 guys that were the Juba and the one guy that I don't see him on here.
Like the big guy.
The big guy.
Might have. I don't know, because I wish we could tell by who is.
Well, it should be in order of appearance. I don't think it'd be. That far down.
I know, because I feel like as though it should be.
I think it's Tony Curran.
Yeah, that's Tony. He was one of the assassins that was supposed to kill and / execute Maximus,
but he didn't. He won his
yes.
respect, and they fought in the arena together.
Yeah,
and it was interesting to see some of these battles when they come into Rome. Finally they come to Rome. And when they're in Rome, they're getting ready to fight. When Commodus realizes who Maximus is, when he takes off his mask,
because this battle event comes, or they go to it, right? Or
right,
who comes to who? Like the battle, or the Caesar? They go to that, or if you know.
After Maximus defeats this undefeatable warrior.
Yeah, I'm checking.
Well, I need to see the characters. That's her son,
Lucius.
Lucius runs to him. Okay, runs, and because he wants to meet him.
Yeah,
and he doesn't say anything.
And even Caesar, Commodus, now the Caesar, he wants to meet him too.
Commodus runs up. So
here
finally,
he is Hagen, played by Ralph Moller. Okay.
Moller.
Thank you.
Or Meller, however you pronounce that. But anyway, he when he takes off, Maximus turns his back on him, which is
how dare you turn my back?
Turn your back on me, and
remove
Maximus,
your helmet.
And he does, and then he says,
Maximus has no choice but to do so, and of course introduce himself. And
he says,
he lets Caesar have it.
Yeah, Maximus. He says, Father. He says, general to a slain Caesar.
Yep.
Father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I'll have my vengeance in this life or the next. And at that point, Commodus is just like, he realizes
he's still screwed,
because now that he knows that Maximus he has power because he is popular,
and the people are chanting his name,
and he can't kill him.
He can't kill him, and even like the whole thumbs down, thumbs up, gives a thumbs up that he lives. That's how they did it in the Roman days.
They did, which in fact I've heard it's opposite. That when the Caesar wanted them spared, he would do the thumbs down, and when he wanted them killed, he'd do this. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but I've heard it is opposite. So, but anyway, he gives him a thumbs up, meaning to spare his life.
I think it makes more sense with the thumbs down, like, no, he does not live. So,
but you see at some point when you do see at some point when when they go into battle, and Maximus they're trying to kill Maximus. They're trying to kill the other gladiators along with him.
Yeah.
And Maximus tells him. He says he tells all the gladiators that are in the ring with him. He says, "Do you want to live?" They're like, "Yes." He says, "Then do exactly as I say." And he commands them, and he puts them in position, in a battle position, to where they will survive, and they do.
Yeah.
They do survive. But they end up taking on several. It would be basically, if any of the gladiators that they had in there, even the toughest gladiators, they could not have withstood the attack that they did. But they had Maximus, who was a brilliant military strategist, because he was a general. So he tells them exactly what to do, exactly the position to be in, exactly when to attack, and they do it, and they live.
Yeah,
and that was so cool.
Mm-hmm. We can't forget some of the other characters, important characters like Derek Jacobi. He plays,
Gracchus.
Yeah, he has an important role in this.
David Schofield is Falco. John Shrapnel is Gaius. They're Roman senators.
Right.
They want Commodus destroyed. They want him taken down.
And so does what's her name again?
Lucilla.
How is that different?
Because she knows he's dangerous. She wants him dead.
Even though he's her brother, it's for the best.
So finally, Commodus is going to take on Maximus in the ring himself.
Yeah,
but he knows he can't beat him.
Well, yeah, they're all in on this, from Falco and the others, and Lucilla, even Proximo. He's in on it too. Everybody, and from the fighters,
Proximo ends up slain. The general's personal assistant. Was it Cicero? No, it wasn't Cicero. It was.
Well, I mean, like right here, because Cicero. Yeah, Cicero.
Cicero was slain. Cicero was hanged.
He was. I mean,
because he had him. He lured him there
earlier in the film. Very early on in the film, he was loyal to Maximus and still was. So even at one point, giving a message to Lucilla. So
and says, and he said that's when he sends those 10 figures to him
yes.
that are his. They're actually lead figures that represent his wife and son.
Right.
And then he when he is lured out, because he is going, the goal is to ride out to where his men are and bring them back to Rome.
Yes.
Slay Commodus and turn control back over to the Roman Senate.
And give Maximus, the lead of Caesar. So
Gaius is, I think it's Gaius who is Gaius. He is skeptical about this because he wants to believe, but he's convinced by Lucia. She convinces him that he is an honorable man and he will keep his word. He wants Rome to be a republic.
Yep, and to free the people of Rome and such.
Exactly. So he trusts him, and he basically says, Lucia trusts you, Marcus Aurelius trusts you, I trust you. So they send him out and they let him go. But Commodus and his men, they're one step ahead of him.
Yeah. And here, I meant to bring this up early on. I think that she has, I think it's obvious. I think she has a thing for Maximus.
Oh, absolutely she does. And for her, but he's torn because
Maximus too?
Well, Maximus has an attraction to her. But
But I mean, how loyal he is to his wife and son. So.
They're barely dead. He's not going to go chasing after another woman. For
yeah, of course not.
But there's obviously an attraction.
And I
there.
think Lucia knows that too.
And he draws strength from her because she supports him and helps him. And
he's not sure at first on her, but I think later on he realizes and knows how loyal and he can trust her.
So when he rides out and he is to meet Cicero and they're to ride to get the army.
Well, before that, because here's the thing, we have to mention this, that more moments between Commodus and his nephew, and even telling him stories, and
creepy.
One story that he tells, and even has his sister listen to it as well,
and she starts crying
because that story he's saying. That's his plan
to
kill everyone who's involved, who is on Maximus's side.
Yeah, and
he's giving out the whole plans to her.
She starts to cry because she realizes this story he is telling it's not a fairy tale. It's an actual plan that he has hatched.
Yes,
to get rid of Maximus and to get rid of his
one of them, Falco or
Gaius,
going for one of them and the wife and with a snake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but then let's get back to...
And also, by this point, where Proximo, this is where because again, after Oliver Reed's unexpected passing, they had to use a body double and CG to still keep Oliver Reed in the film, because Ridley Scott was not going to just give up and remove Oliver Reed for someone else. You can't. Oliver Reed was that character.
Sure he was.
And they made the smart move to, just use a body double and, using CG. And, they also had to build, the sets that they had to build, they had to do that to match with the footage, Like sun lighting coming and, you see it lighting on his face and such. And the script had to be rewritten. And so that way, they can kind of quickly, have Proximo get killed.
Right.
I think it was bound to happen that Proximo would be killed because of what he was doing.
Right.
Yeah, so, of course, Proximo, he frees the prisoners, and, basically Proximo is risking his life, and thus he's killed.
So let's get to Maximus. He's on horseback.
Yeah, and
he rides to meet
the soldiers are fighting
Cicero.
them off, but some of them get killed. Even
Right.
the big guy gets killed.
He calls out to Cicero.
Yeah.
And the horse runs, and Cicero is swinging.
Yeah.
And then he's been set up. And they take him back to Rome. They put him in the prison, and this is when Commodus decides he's going to fight him in the arena. And it's going to be the Caesar versus the Maximus.
And a moment between him and Lucilla, and how at a certain point, if things don't go according to plan for him, then he will kill his own nephew, and even say at times where he's saying, am I not merciful? He calmly says it to her, and a demonstration, am I not merciful?
Yeah.
That was improvised by Joaquin Phoenix, and Connie Nielsen's reaction was practical.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a very natural reaction.
It worked, and that works for the character of Commodus.
So so basically, what happens? Commodus, in order to, as they would say,
cheat to win, I guess,
is sauce for the goose. The odds are more even, not even, but a little more even in his favor. He puts a dagger in Maximus's back.
Oh yeah.
To cause him to slowly bleed out. So he loses his strength,
slowly dying.
But it doesn't quite work out it doesn't quite work out the way Commodus plans.
Yeah.
Which is probably one of the best deaths I have ever seen.
What, a movie villain?
Yeah, because you enjoy it. You absolutely enjoy it.
Well, because the battle begins between Commodus and Maximus,
and to a certain degree, Commodus he's battle trained. I mean, he's been trained in use of a sword, self-defense. He knows how to handle a sword. We see that,
of course,
and he's learned. He's been trained, but he's never been in battle. So this is his first real battle, life and death. But he's fighting the greatest of gladiators that could have ever been, the greatest of warriors, the general, And but the general is weak because he's lost so much blood, and of course Commodus tells his guard to cover it so it can't be seen, so the blood can't be seen. So he's bleeding out from the inside, but oh man, when he finally gets him, that's awesome. He takes that knife and turns it around on him with all his strength that he has left.
Yep.
He puts that knife around in his throat and just shoves that knife right into his throat, and you can hear it. You can hear it as it goes.
The face that Joaquin Phoenix gives.
Oh yeah. It's just, and he's he dies pretty much instantly.
Instantly
at that point.
And just for a brief moment, Maximus becoming the new Caesar, and giving out requests and orders, what to do in Rome. So
he's as he falls, his
right before he falls
is when Lucilla says, go to them.
Yeah,
because he sees his wife and son.
Yeah, what were the orders again that he gave? Requests. Maximus.
He basically says, Rome. He says Rome is to become a republic again.
Yeah, and give Gracchus
Gracchus.
He was in prison. He was in prison for a little while, but Maximus said to give his position back and such, and free Rome and so on, make it republic, and because he falls on his back, and her coming to him and telling him go to them, and we see because he's He's entering in the afterlife.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, fun fact, because Russell Crowe, I saw this where Russell Crowe was talking about this, he's killed too many people to go to heaven, but he's too good of a man to be cast into hell. So basically, he's stuck between worlds.
Yeah. I guess that's pretty much a way to put it.
And there's, I have to mention this detail, because he was like scraping off something on his arm,
Yeah.
It had to do something with, the gods who he worships, I want to say. Like, you should know what I'm talking about.
I thought it was an identification as a Roman soldier. I thought that's what he was trying to get rid of.
If you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
so.
I know that, but I didn't think that was his god. I thought it was a mark of a Roman soldier.
I mean, I know what I'm talking about, and it's in the film, but it's the best I can describe. So
okay.
I'm just saying, because again, besides, as I just said, like, he's stuck between worlds. And, well, he's reunited with his wife and son, right? And thus, she gave Lucilla, is that right still? Lucilla. She gives out a pretty good speech.
And she does, and it's so funny because they said, she's basically, give him a Roman's funeral, treat him as a Roman hero or whatever, however she says it, but she says to honor him, and they all...
who will carry him? Who will help me carry him?
And they pick him up and carry him and leave, Commodus's corpse there.
Yeah.
Just let the dogs eat. And he probably just stayed there. They probably just threw him in a heap of garbage.
Probably so.
Because he was revealed in the end. Everybody knew what he was, knew how evil he was. He was totally revealed.
And the fact that Commodus was based off of an actual person,
Yes.
And he was hated by everybody, and they successfully killed him by poisoning him.
Yes.
Yeah, so, if you know that, so... and last scene with Juba, saying, see you on the other side, but not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Yep, he was not ready to die. And which he is in this second Gladiator movie, is he not?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Okay,
but,
I thought he was, but maybe I'm wrong.
But let's not get into Gladiator 2 for the time being. So, and that was even brought up earlier because of Juba, like, wanting to, be with his, wife and daughter, and felt like that he was not going to be with them again.
Exactly.
And that whole thing of, not yet being brought up and such. But yeah, and what a great way to end that film, and with Juba and like that camera shot of what Rome is today and such, that whole arena just empty. So yeah, because Rome is as it is, like, it's much better. So because of what Maximus requested. So
well, there were Caesars after that, though. So
yeah, yeah,
and the Roman Empire did eventually fall.
Yeah. And one more thing, one more fun fact I want to mention, because I wanted to talk about this, and I knew, and for this review video, this was the perfect time to bring this up, and you had not heard of this, because there's a connection with this movie and Johnny Cash, because Joaquin Phoenix talked about this when he was on Conan O'Brien. This was at the time when Walk the Line was coming out, and how Joaquin Phoenix, he got to meet the Johnny Cash. And I think Joaquin Phoenix, the best I can remember and describe is that I think he was invited over to Johnny Cash's house, and then right before he left, Johnny Cash stopped him and was talking to Phoenix about Gladiator, because he had seen Gladiator and he loved the film, and he said to Joaquin Phoenix, like, that part where Commodus was telling Maximus about what happened to his wife and son, they, screamed like a whore and such,
Yes.
Do you remember how the dialogue goes?
Yes. I can't remember exactly, but I know what you're talking about.
And again, because, telling him about that, again and again, I love that part. That's what Johnny said to Phoenix.
Wow.
Yeah.
That had to creep Joaquin Phoenix out just a little bit. It creeped me out.
Yeah. I mean, come on. Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash, they loved that one film that Quentin Tarantino wrote, Natural Born Killers. They enjoyed that film, so
okay.
They enjoyed it, so it's their opinion. So, and obviously because with Johnny Cash meeting Phoenix, because I read where Johnny Cash, he specifically handpicked Phoenix to play himself. So.
Makes sense.
So there's that. There's your story of, the connection with Gladiator and Johnny Cash. But with all that being said, Gladiator, what a fantastic and perfect film this is.
It was, yeah. And on a scale of 1 to 5, I give it 5 stars.
Yeah, but what are your final results and last words to say on the film?
It's just a beautifully done film. From beginning to end. Again, one of my second favorite opening to any movie.
Your number 2 favorite?
My number 2, I would say I would say probably.
Or is it a tie, or what is it?
It's probably, I'll say this, it's in the top 3.
Okay.
They kind of float, because I've got my 3 favorites, and that's one of the 3. But it's an amazing film.
Absolutely it is. And like I said earlier, because, I think for some people they were surprised to see that, Ridley Scott, who did films like Alien, Thelma and Louise, he did this movie. How did you react when you first found out that Ridley Scott did this movie?
I wasn't surprised, because I always associated Ridley Scott with Aliens,
and Blade Runner.
Yes, of course. So it's epic, so that's...
Yeah,
I saw it over the top, so I saw, this will be good.
Yeah, because Ridley Scott never disappoints.
Yeah, so now when I see it, but it's funny, when I see Ridley Scott's name now associated, I think of Aliens and I think of Gladiator. Oh. So, you see.
I mean, those are his top movies. Yeah. I mean, there's those, and even Blade Runner is one of them too, and Thelma and Louise. So, yeah. But for me, because I really enjoy Gladiator, even I remember because... you and my mom, not to say that you were, pestering me, but, I guess in a humorous way, you were just, I guess, you guys were desperately wanting me to see this movie.
Well, I was kind of kidding, but I said, yeah, you really should see that. I said, you really ought to see that movie. I think you really like it.
Of course I knew I was going to watch it, but, one of those movies I never got around to until now. And I'm glad that I finally got to watch it, and how fantastic this movie is. It is, so... How can you not enjoy a movie like Gladiator?
Exactly.
Okay, but, the story, the casting, the emotional moments, and sometimes funny moments, and the music, everything about this movie, fantastic.
So I'm going to guess that you're going to give it the highest marks you can possibly give it.
What was yours again?
5 stars.
5 stars, and, for me, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 stars for Gladiator.
5 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, because it definitely deserves that high rank.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and it rightfully so won Best Picture.
As it should.
Yep. And Russell Crowe winning for, Best Actor in a Leading Role. And I don't think Ridley Scott got nominated for directing. I don't think. I think Russell Crowe, he did mention that. So I think, he felt sorry for Ridley Scott for not being nominated, or, for that matter, winning. He should have.
Yeah,
so,
should have.
But anyways, so what about you guys? What did you think of Gladiator? The first time you watched it, were you surprised at some stuff that was in the movie? Yeah, because there are some surprising and shocking moments, of course.
There were.
Yeah, and did you cry at anything in this movie? I have no doubt about it. Yeah, what did you think, and what did you think of our review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed our review of Gladiator. More review videos are on the way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and we'll see you guys in the next video/review. And of course, Oscar-winning movie week is still continuing, of course, and the next Oscar-winning film, this time it's an animated feature film that won Best Animated Feature, and let's just say it has to do with a family of superheroes. Yeah, you know exactly what that is, and yeah, hopefully, yeah, it can be me and my dad talking about it. Yeah, I want him to do this with me. All right, any last words?
I must be off.
He says that for me. Take care, thank you for watching again, and until Gladiator 2, peace out.